In this video, we are going to continue with rationalizing the denominator of a radical expression, but we are going to do so when the denominator contains more than one term. And in order to do so, we are going to need to multiply the numerator and the denominator of our fraction by what is called the conjugate. And the conjugate is two terms, and they're the same, only one involves the sum and one involves the difference. And what that then does is allows us to cancel out some middle terms. So let me show you what that looks like. If this is my fraction, my radical expression, and I'm going to multiply by the conjugate of my denominator, so my current denominator is 2 square root 3 plus 9. So then my conjugate would be 2 square root 3 minus 9. Okay, so I have to do that both in my numerator and denominator. Okay, so then what I get, my numerator, I'm just going to distribute the 7 through to both of these terms, multiplying. So this becomes 14 radical 3 minus 7 times 9 is 63. Okay. Now in my denominator, I'm going to get 2 radical 3 times 2 radical 3, so that becomes 4 radical 9. Okay, so that's because 3 times 3. And then I'm taking 2 radical 3 times a minus 9, so that becomes minus 18 radical 3. Okay, and then I'm doing 9 times 2 radical 3, so that becomes a plus 18 radical 3. Gotta keep extending my fraction bar there. And then my last one is I have a plus 9 times minus 9, so that's minus 81. Notice here that our two inside terms cancel. I have a minus 18 radical 3 and a plus 18 radical 3. So those will cancel out for us, which is convenient. And so what I have now is 4 times radical 9, which is really 4 times 3, right? Because square root of 9 is 3. So 4 times 3 is 12, and I have a minus 81. And in my numerator, I have 14 radical 3 minus 63. So then I just have to simplify because I can do 12 minus 81. And of course, that gives us a negative 69. So I have 14 radical 3 minus 63, and that's all over a negative 69. One final check to make sure that you're completely simplified is you're looking for any common factors of all three of your terms. Here with a 14, 63, and 69. So I noticed that 7 goes into 14 and 7 goes into 63, but 7 does not go into 69. So I believe I'm good to go on those, and that would leave this answer as is. Sometimes you'll see that this negative, even though it shows up in the denominator, the people will write it out front or in the numerator, or typically out front. If you put it up here in the numerator, you have to carry it through to all parts of the numerator. So oftentimes they'll put it out front. I'm fine with you leaving it for right now just where it is. Okay? So then let's try that. Okay, so again, we're multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the conjugate of your denominator. So this becomes 4 plus 5 square root 6, or 5 radical 6, depending on how you want to say it. Doesn't matter. Okay, so my numerator, I get 12 plus 15 square root 6. And in my denominator, I get 16 plus 20 square root 6 and a minus 20 square root 6. And then I have a minus 25 times the square root of 36. Okay. Recall that these two middle ones cancel out, which is good. That's what we designed it to do. So I have 12 plus 15 radical 6, and in my denominator I have 16, and then I have a minus, and I'm doing 25 times square root 6, which is really, or excuse me, square root 36, which is 25 times 6, so minus 150, which gives me 12 plus 15 square root 6 all over 16 minus 150 is negative 134. Okay. And so then I know that 12 and 15 carry a common factor of 3. So I need to double check if 134 is divisible by 3, but it's not. So we're just going to leave it just like that. Otherwise I would need to do that common factor. Okay. Here's another one. Remember, we're caring about the conjugate of the denominator, not the numerator in this case. So I'm doing square root 7 minus square root 3. And then, oops, square root 7 minus square root 3. So this gives me 3 square root 7 minus 3 square root 3 minus square root 70, and then plus square root 30 in my numerator. In my denominator, I'm going to get square root 49 minus square root 21 plus square root 21 and then minus square root 9. So now I need to see about combining like terms. So 3 square root 7. I cannot simplify that any farther because, let me try that again, 3 times the square root of 7, because 7 is prime and there are no perfect square factors. Similarly, 3 square root 3, I cannot simplify that. Now I have to ask myself, 70, any perfect square factors of 70? Well, to get 70, I do 7 times 10, which is 7 times 5 times 2. So I have no perfect squares. I have no ways of getting anything squared from here. So I'm going to leave that as minus square root 70. And then same with 30. 30 is 5 times 6, which is 5 times 2 times 3. But I can't actually simplify that as a radical, so I have to leave it. But in my denominator, these two guys cancel out. So square root 49 is 7, square root 9 is 3, 7 minus 3 is 4. So 3 square root 7 minus 3 square root 3 plus square root 70 and then plus square root 30 all over 4. Now you may be thinking to yourself, gosh, Christina, I don't know that that looks any simpler than what we started with, but it does have a denominator that is rationalized, so that's what matters. Okay. One more thing is that sometimes you'll be asked to rationalize the numerator, and you're going to do the same process as rationalizing the denominator, only you're going to multiply by the conjugate of your numerator, or looking for that, creating that perfect square factor in your numerator. Just be careful to pay attention to the directions of the problem, whether it says to rationalize the denominator or rationalize the numerator. Okay, so if I multiply this by the square root of 3x, I would get the square root of 9x squared over the square root of 15x, which would then give me 3x over the square root of 15x. Now, when you rationalize your numerator, the goal, remember, of rationalizing is to eliminate our radical symbols. So you won't have any in the numerator, but you will leave some in the denominator. Similarly, this becomes, we're going to multiply by the conjugate, so square root of x and then plus 5 for both. So this gives me the square root of x squared plus 5 square root x minus 5 square root x, and then minus 25. Ooh, that's long. And our denominator is square root of x squared plus 5 square root of x. Okay. These two middle ones are going to cancel. So I'm left with x minus 25 in my numerator, and square root of x squared is x plus 5 square root x for my denominator. So that's our process of rationalizing, whether it's the numerator or the denominator. Make sure you pay attention to the directions of the problem so you'll know which one. And that's all of 9.4, so keep up the good work, and we'll see you in the next video.